pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone, for attending. This is...
Board Member Drake?
Yeah, do a roll call.
Here.
Board Member Nysel?
Here.
Board Member Steen?
Here.
Board Member Van Blarkum? Here. Supervisor DeSclafani?
Here. And yes, thanks for everyone attending, unexpected guests, thank you. This is a basic informational meeting on what information we have, what we're going to need to move forward. Basically, we're looking at the Phoenicia school. The school board has offered it to us for $1, and we have received a contract that our lawyer is looking over. There's a few sticky points, and I know that some of that is state required. The use or any leasing of part of the building, I believe it has to have a public use. Can't be a private entity we're leasing part of the building to. So, and we're trying to get more clarity on if that's even a 1% of the building, or if there's a percentage or any percentage. Waiting for information back from our attorney on that fact. We're looking at some serious improvements that would need to be done on the building in the near future. One, there's a couple of serious issues. A buried fuel tank, 10,000 gallon fuel tank. It's not leaking, but it's close to 40 years old. It has monitors on it. It's a double wall line tank. Everything's okay with it now. I've reached out to health department. There are no issues that they've come across in all the years that they have inspected the premises. Septic system is in good shape as far as they're concerned. It's been working for upwards of 200 or 300 students at one point. It's quite a feat of engineering. Anyway, we're working through some issues. One of the big issues and the reason for this early meeting was we had a date of March 18th to decide whether we were going to move forward with this, if we were going to get it on a referendum ballot for the school vote, which is May 24th. Okay. 23rd?
20.
Oh, 20, okay. Anyway, I reached out to Board of Elections, and if we wanted to put it on the November ballot, there is a way and a mechanism for us to do that, which would give us more time to have any reports done, any inspections done, so that we can feel more confident in moving forward with the purchase. Even for $1, it's a lot for our town. It's 30,000 square feet compared to what we have here is not even 3,000 square feet. Yeah, we're taking questions.
Do you want microphone, please? Can you use the microphone? Yeah, we have a home audience and YouTube video and all that.
So the intent is for then, with this contract, what you're discussing right now is for the town to purchase it for the town's use as a
Town hall,
Okay.
community center, and the like. We were hoping to be able to afford that a little bit easier by renting part of it. There are 15 classrooms, and we don't need that much space for a town hall, for offices. Of course, you know, we're thinking of bringing in a dentist's office or doctor's office. We don't have anything lined up. I'm really hoping on County moving some offices up on the western end of the county here, Office for the Aging, that kind of thing.
For some clarity, just because I don't know that it's been put out there, is it strictly for municipal offices? Because we're not considering moving EMS, police, highway to that
We're
location?
considering even moving EMS and police there.
I think we have to
Office.
pull the word "we" out of that statement.
Well,
I-
me.
There you go.
We're-
There you go.
there I go.
One person is considering moving EMS to a flood zone building that gets
We're in
trapped
a
when
flood zone
214
building.
floods. I don't think that is something we are seriously considering doing.
No,
So-
we're talking about it. This is all just a
I think we just
conversation.
did.
Yeah.
I don't think EMS is a realistic use of that building. Neither does anyone from our EMS.
Well, this would have to be discussed, and we're discussing
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think
But the president,
if we're trying to tell people how we're going to use the building and come up with the money to pay for the building, we should be putting out things that are factual, not ideas that are shot down repeatedly. Just,
I was just asking a question because I didn't have clarity. There is an EMS route along the railroad tracks away from the school, which is used for children. I think as we're talking about highway, EMS, police, things to consider is that, you don't have to go as far back as Irene to see the way the flood happens around the building, even if it's not the building itself. So those are things we'd have to consider when we're talking about police, EMS, and highway, is that even though the property itself might not be underwater, the complete surrounding area has no egress out of town, including Bridge Street and Main Street. So things to consider.
it couldn't be used as an emergency center.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
and we've also been told that by the lawyer that renting space out to a doctor or a dentist would not be
Couldn't.
that would not be possible.
Right.
So those examples wouldn't
That
be
he knows
viable.
of so far, but he is investigating a little bit deeper. There are points that we could use it for space of rentals, residences. So maybe, but even that is not something that might go with a town hall.
Right, there is historical precedent for school buildings transferred from a school district to a municipality being converted into federally subsidized housing. And while that is something the town could definitely use, I think before we cash that check, we would want to find out if we actually could qualify to put federally subsidized housing in a floodplain.
Absolutely. And also, I don't think we're even thinking about anything highway, possibly just an office, but it's too residential of an area to have anything highway there.
There's no garage on, yeah.
To put a garage on that, even though we have 12 acres, or it's 12 acres. So this is just an informational meeting, just to let people know where we're at, what we're thinking, our own internal conflicts.
So question, you had noted that Board of Elections would potentially allow us to put this at a November voting date, obviously assuming agreements from all parties. If that were to take place, what would be the deadline for that vote?
The deadline would be August 4th to get them the information that would be on the proposition.
So if that were to become a target deadline, we would want to have all of our respective due diligence completed well in advance of August.
Exactly. Victoria?
I'm a little confused about the November ballot. The school district voters have to approve it. It has to be on our ballot for the entire school district. So the November vote is not a school district vote.
Well, that's what we're trying to work out right now, and I'm waiting to hear back from our lawyer and your lawyer. I know, we know that it's not a school vote, but we were hoping to hit the Ontario school voters during the November election by hitting all of Shandaken, all of Olive, and then the part of Woodstock, if they have a registration for their school district that they could vote on the Woodstock ballot, on the back they would be handed. This is all still work in progress.
It's also part of Lexington and part of Hurley.
Right, right,
But my understanding is it has to be a school district vote.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it wouldn't
we're-
help to
So-
put it on the November ballot at all, would it? Because it
We
needs to
could
be,
hold a special vote, but that costs extra money.
we've been told in excess of $20,000.
I think that's a reasonable estimate. I mean, we haven't updated it in a very long time, and voting has changed significantly.
Okay,
Still a significant cost regardless to hold a special
It would be
election.
a cost, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
But,
thank you. So if we get a negative on the November ballot, if that couldn't be a possibility, which it's sounding like, then that would be an added cost on top of all any of the repairs that need to be done to the school.
Right, and we're unclear. We have a report provided by the district that was a 5-year capital facilities plan that listed $4.5 million worth of repairs, and the top priority repairs were just over $3 million. Now, I believe some of those have been done. The asbestos abatement, for example, I'm aware of having been completed. That knocks about $100,000 off the tab, but there's roof repairs listed to the tune of $770,000. Those have not been completed. We could go through it line by line and find out what, but I think it's safe to say there's still millions of dollars worth of repairs. So in addition to paying the operating costs, which are a shot in the dark, but most people are throwing around $125,000 to $150,000 a year to operate the building, in addition to that, which we have to come up with by ourselves since we don't have any tenants and there aren't many people who would qualify to be a tenant, we would have to come up with several $1 million over the next few years to pay for the building. It's fabulous and generous of the school district to sell us the building for $1, but that's not the cost of the building. The cost of the building over a 3-year period is, even if the repairs come down to $1 million left, it's $1 million plus $125,000 a year. So and that is why there's hesitation from the rest of the board to acquire the building. We do not have a spare $125,000 in the budget right now. We thought renting the building out would be a great way to get the building, but as we've learned from our lawyer, we can't do that. Perhaps we can rent to county, but so far county has not actually committed or even strongly suggested that they would be interested in renting the building, or any part of the building.
Right, correct.
Hi.
Hi, Babs.
I'm wondering, since Ms. McLaren is here, if I could just float, and I have no idea whether this is a possibility, but is there something in between $1 and some amount that would enable it to broaden how many types of organizations we could rent to?
That was a question I was going to bring up also. If we purchased the building at a fair, reasonable market value, we have to find out from our lawyers if that alleviates that restriction, if that removes that restriction from not allowing us to rent it to anyone we want.
Our lawyer did answer that question.
He did.
Yes, and the quoting, well, I asked the lawyer via email that the entire
sorry,
board was
that's right.
copied on. Does the rule on not renting, selling only apply because it is a $1 transfer of ownership? What if we bought it for, and I named several higher figures, asking if there was a range, much like what Barb just asked. And the lawyer replied, the rule applies because the proposed sale is pursuant to Education Law 405. If the OCS district were to offer the property for sale in the open market pursuant to Education Law 402, it would presumably be sold for fair market value to the highest bidder. And it might have a sales price of many hundreds of thousands of dollars, but would then not be subject to the restrictions we are discussing.
Right.
As much as that there's a huge cost difference up front between $1 and an unknown many hundreds of thousands of dollars, when you look at the fact that that would enable us to do whatever we want with the building, including renting it out, that might be the way that makes it affordable.
But it
It
would
also
have to
might
go out
not,
to,
depending on that figure.
But it would have to
but it
go
would have to go out
open
to
market.
bid?
It would have to go to open market, they would have to put it on the market, and whatever time frame. It's not a matter of a bid per se, but just,
If we're the only ones interested, then we would be the highest bidder.
Right.
If a developer wanted it, which is very feasible, then we would,
They would,
lose.
anything other than them taking the highest bidders, apparently, my read of Paul's answer makes it subject to law 405.
Right. And it could be the better way to go.
Hard to say without knowing what that number is. You got a realtor in the house that can tell us what it's worth? Hi, Teresa.
Yeah, feel it.
Well, we saw the,
There have been appraisals provided to us by the district, and
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars is a fair number to talk about.
anyone have questions?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry I came in a few minutes late, so I don't know if you covered this or not. But would it be feasible to figure out how much it would cost the taxpayers and maybe do like a community center and let us say like, hey, do we want to pay to have a community center and also have it be part of the town's offices and things that we need?
So if we got it under the dollar trade, so we're restricted in its use, first, yes, a community center would be an acceptable use of the building. So you're suggesting, could we then apply the cost of whatever portion is used as a community center as a fee tax to the town to have it paid for?
To A, fix it, maintain it, and make an estimate of how much each Shandaken taxpayer is gonna pay, or per $1,000 assessed value, however you wanna put it out there. And then say, hey, how does everybody feel about this? Do you think this is a good idea? And maybe weigh out the public, would they wanna pay for that? I personally would say, if it's not super expensive and it's a few $100 a year, I would put in for that because I would love to have a community center, an indoor place to play basketball or
Even
places
walk.
to meet up and do stuff. Yeah, walk around just to get exercise back and forth. And one of my other big concerns as a parent of a young child is that that's one of our best playgrounds. And I would love to see that stay open to the public, or if it's not going to, I would love to try and get that to another area like the parish field, if for some reason we couldn't keep that area like a public playground.
Right.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we move towards the purchase of the Phoenicia School, it will definitely be a section that's a community center.
Yeah.
That's definitely
It's
not,
huge, and I
yeah.
don't think that you need all that space for just the town offices, which is why I think it would be great if the public would get a benefit out of it, and they might be willing to say, hey, let me pay a little bit extra so that we can have a great community area to come together and do stuff indoors in the middle of the winter, or any time of year, really.
Yep, yep.
Regardless of whether, I guess, the town purchases it or the school board sells it on the open market, is there some plan to, I don't know if this is a question for you or for the school board, but adjacent landowners, property owners, directly adjacent to this property, are they going to get some kind of notification of what the use would be?
Oh, we would definitely have a public hearing about it and put it out to the adjacent landowners.
And I guess as an adjacent landowner, I would just say I would definitely be in favor of it as a community center, town center, absolutely.
Yep.
But I would not be in favor of it if it was some kind of a large private development project that was not in keeping with the local zoning, the local residential neighborhood.
Exactly what we're trying to,
Yeah.
I just want to commend the board for taking this on. You're trying to do something that's like thinking outside of the box, and it's not easy. And there's a lot of challenges, so I just appreciate you even daring to think of this and just encourage you to, even though it's difficult and challenging, that I think you guys can figure it out, and I just want to commend you and thank you for even thinking that this is possible.
thank you, thank you. And this isn't going to be the only meeting on this. We're going to do this at least 2 or 3 more times, if not more.
Hello. I also came in a few minutes.
State your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't know everybody.
Nicole Magnolia.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also came in a few minutes late, so maybe I missed it. What are the permitted uses under law 402, 405?
405.
405. What would be permitted?
Any public use, like a town hall or a community center, don't know how many other, if the county came in and opened office for the aging or a nutrition program, that kind of thing. Maybe a not-for-profit of some sort, like a doctor's office, a medical office that was not-for-profit, or a child care center, that kind of thing.
So possibly like a 501c3 organization?
Some kind of
serves a public function?
501c3, a food pantry, a food bank.
Well, nonprofits we specifically asked about, and the lawyer said that, I don't have it in front of me, so I won't quote it exactly, but it would depend on the intent and purpose of that nonprofit. Just being a nonprofit would not make you for public use, and it's the kind of thing that might have to be put to vote throughout the entire district. Basically what it comes down to, it's loosely defined, and any use that was at all questionable could be therefore questioned by any member of the school district, not just our town. Lawsuits have been fought over this sort of thing, apparently. We do not want to go down that road.
No, and I did reach out to the municipalities that use the Rondout School right now down in Marbletown. And what they've encountered as far as challenges is renting things, and mostly they rented it to other county facilities. They did have a little catering shop going in there, a little cafe, but I don't know how that passed, maybe because it was just very limited, maybe 2 days a week or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
My recollection was the specific language was a public corporation or for a public purpose, but unfortunately,
That sounds right.
the
Yeah.
last several public comments, I think, all sort of identified roughly the same thing, is that there's quite a bit of due diligence left to be done, and part of it is the facilities condition, part of it is the viable, acceptable, and legal uses, and then a great deal of it is obviously the financials associated with all of that. And so fundamentally, an analysis of alternatives is what we're ultimately going to have to go through. And so, I mean, a good part of the value here is some ideas and things like that, of things for us to pursue and questions that will lead us in areas of that due diligence inquiry, because it's going to take weeks to realistically months of due diligence to solve those usage questions, financial questions, and facilities questions, which are, again, to some of those comments that came up previously of whether it would make more sense to attempt to purchase it on the open market. That alleviates some of those legal usage questions, but obviously changes the financial one significantly. And so all that is to say, thank you for all of your comments, because I think that will help us with the due diligence.
Absolutely, it's a challenge trying to figure out which way to go and how much we're willing to put stress onto our residents by adding more burden, whether that's $100 more a year or $500 more a year. We don't, we want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the decision.
I'm curious about the open market versus the purchasing for $1. If it were to go on the open market, would the school district be able to, like when you're selling a home, you're able to say, I want to sell to this person because they're aligned, or I don't want to sell? Would they have to go with the highest bidder?
Yes.
I believe our understanding.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if a real estate
And our realtor is
developer-
shaking her head yes too, so I'm
Yes,
gonna
yes.
So if a
count that as legal
real estate
advice.
developer came along and wanted to do something that was not aligned with what the community wanted, they would have to then still sell to the real estate.
Yes.
So there's a lot of risk, I'm hearing, with putting it on the open market.
Well,
no.
something to bear in mind is that currently, that property has a permitted use as a public building, as an education facility. So anyone who wanted to purchase that property and do anything else with it would need to go through our town's process per our town code to apply for a change of use, going through our planning board, possibly the ZBA, possibly other meetings. So yes, there's a risk of putting it in the open market, we may not get it, but at the height of it, people were saying, great, it's going to get turned into an Amazon distribution center. Well, that's not a permitted use in a residentially zoned neighborhood, so we would not grant that.
Right. That was my question.
Yeah. I spoke to Amazon already and told them no.
They're knocking down the door.
Yeah, they're begging to come to Shandaken. So there is still,
Zoning.
the risk is us not getting it and it going to something that isn't as good for the community, but we still have zoning regulations and codes in place that will restrict what that property can be used for.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Does
I mean-
it have historical value, the building itself, or?
I don't think so.
Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
I got some people here who went to that school when it opened, and they would say, yes, historical value, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it turned into a community center that services not only our littlest residents, but also our seniors.
Our seniors, yes, exactly.
I think that is a great way to honor that building. It was a big devastation, seeing it close down and what it meant to our community, so.
Just to have a warm, dry place to go and walk, it
Yeah.
would be nice. If we could afford it, we're gonna do
All
it.
right, well, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, at the risk of being a microphone hog. I would just ask that part of the due diligence also include agencies that I haven't heard listed here. There's state agencies, I think that we should consider, most particular, our neighbor Orta, whoever else that we can find to be possible renters. Thank you, liaison.
I've reached out to DEP. They just built a new facility in Arkville, and they declined. At present, they said they're good.
Terry, excuse again. Sorry, I don't want to be microphone hog either. I guess I would just add, speaking of DEP, that use of that property as a school, the septic is designed for that type of use. It's not designed for residential use of any kind.
Oh.
So any kind of even public housing would have to get DEP approval to change that, and that would, just so you know, that's a whole nother.
Of course, Health Department and DEP all they
Right.
really control and regulate the septic.
And then I guess I would just ask, has you looked into continuing education programs, like any of those interested?
Actually, I haven't, but that's a great idea.
BOCES or something.
Right. Do something on the western end of the county,
Yeah.
for sure.
I thought they were closing down the one in Ulster. Is that true?
I'm not sure.
They're moving.
Oh, they're moving. Where are they moving to?
Not far.
Oh.
But they did put one of their satellite schools in the Anna Divine School when it closed down.
Oh. Yeah.
There's a
Long
great
ways.
article for everybody to look at. It's called Closed Schools, Open Minds, done by Patterns for Progress. It's worth a read.
Hey.
Christina Davis. So talking about this renting issue, does that even include, when people rent a firehouse for a birthday party? I'm wondering how,
No, I think they were talking about a long-term leasee. So
Okay.
if there's like an event, that could be done. That's not renting it out to a long-term leasee. It's-
right, so then the restrictions for the $1 purchase only include long-term leases, not short-term?
Correct.
I don't
But I'll
know
check on that.
Yeah, I don't think we know that.
I won't know that
Well,
positively,
that's
but
why I'm asking the clarifying question, it sounded like,
that's a lawyer question, and I really,
I would have to imagine we rent the pavilions at the parks, we could probably rent out the gym. for
right,
them,
well, that's kind of what I was thinking, there's been, talking about community center and talking about big dreams in the town of Shandaken, being able to use that to provide things for
our elderly community and our youngest community and things like that, and what does that look like for doing those kinds of things? I mean, I know I have a 5-year-old birthday party to throw next weekend, and it's winter, and there's nowhere fun to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, kind of thinking about that as well.
Victoria, you want to rent it for an afternoon?
Right at the library.
Wedding venue, sure, yeah.
Start doing weddings. Weddings are the way to go. We can make lots of
We're
money.
touchy about weddings in this town.
Oh, God.
Gonna put that out there. We have a lot of restrictions on weddings in this town. I want to touch on one thing that didn't come up, and I'm really surprised. Nobody's asked about grants, even though one of our leading grant writers in town is sitting in the audience. Basically, we have looked into grants, but it comes back to the same floodplain. Turns out there's very few people who are willing to throw money at a floodplain. So currently, we're striking out at grants. Some suggestions have been made that the property is in a floodplain, but the school building itself is built up on a slab, raising it out of the floodplain. We haven't had any traction with that yet, but it's still a possibility. No biters, but I think that it would be worth sticking some of our grant people on a little research. Yeah, we're looking at you.
I'm looking at one grant for a community building, and I don't know where to.
It's slightly tangential, but it's also, I think, part of this sort of analysis is, of course, this building and the nearby structures. So, of course, we've got a dog shelter right across, and that would presumably need to be moved or find a new home, potentially, certainly if this parcel were to be sold. Additionally, there's the recycling center that is right there, and any sort of movement of that would require a cost, if nothing else. And we could sell this building independent of the highway, but we are still left with a highway department that is also in a floodway, and there's no consideration of the highway department being placed on the school parcel, but we do still need to find ultimately a home for the highway department, and so that is an additional complication that just needs to get evaluated in there, because again, those structures aren't going to move themselves for free.
I think, Peter, you talked about a collaboration with the county, right? As in one building, sharing the building, or sharing the campus, if you will, however you want to place that. What do you think the likelihood of that actually is, and what does the time frame look like that? You know?
Well, what's holding us back, I mean, the county has put in a shared services grant to put 2 buildings together as one, and to try and find funding for that. A lot of it is a federal grant, so there's been some issues with that. So the likelihood may not be all there. We'll have to see how that all runs. But the biggest issue is that we don't have a place yet to put that highway facility. We're looking at, and we have approval from DEP for that parcel across from the Baptist camp.
Big Indian.
But there's going to be a couple of years before they're waded through the red tape of how to extract that parcel away from the 5 or 6 other parcels that they put together in a conservation easement.
Right, it can be done, but it hasn't been done before, so they have to figure out the actual process.
Right. And
which could take...
which may be not even figuring it out, but just saying, okay, John, go do that. You know, it has to go through from one desk to another before it lands on somebody's to-do.
Okay.
I'm sure any lawyer could figure out how to do it. It's just which lawyer is going to get it.
And there was not a known time frame.
Not a known time frame. We know it's going to be upwards of 2 years.
Which we don't have to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, for the highway garage, I mean, it's not like there's a date that we have to be out by.
Right.
That is removed from this decision, where to move to town hall, or if to move to town hall, if we can afford to do this purchase of the Phoenicia School.
Well, in a DEP land swap, we know what would happen with this building. What would happen to this property apart from the highway garage if we were to move to town, or to Phoenicia School?
If we were to move to the Phoenicia School, they would knock this down and make it a meadow,
Who would knock it down?
DEP.
Okay, so they would
They want to buy
gain,
it.
they would buy the property, or they would gain the
want to
property?
buy it.
Okay,
Right. They would do a flood buy.
except for the highway garage.
Well, if and when the highway garage, we have a place to move, they would do the highway garage too.
So would they acquire the property when we move to Phoenicia School, or would this be a 2-year down the line thing?
It would probably take 2 years for them to get this property and do all the paperwork that they have to do. Any of the flood buyouts that we've had going, when we first got in office, we had a bunch of contracts done, and those are just getting knocked down now.
But do we,
2 aren't even.
do we think that 2-year time frame, which I agree is realistic, would start the day we move out of town hall or the day we move the highway? Because they wouldn't subdivide this property and
It's
buy
subdivided
just the
already.
building?
It's 4 parcels.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's actually, it's a crazy. But
So by virtue of us moving to the Phoenicia School, all of a sudden DEP would acquire this property and
we
knock it
would
down?
set, if we were going to do the Phoenicia School, we would set up and do a contract with them, and that would get the ball rolling. When they came and actually knocked the building down, it would be at least 2 years.
And when would we get the money? That's what I'm more interested in.
Well, that would be,
I'm building it stand forever if they pay for it, I don't.
yeah.
Or we could flood-proof and use it as an EMS emergency center or a museum. Or
We could do that if we're just using the upstairs and we removed everything from the downstairs.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yes, Babs?
So I'm just kind of hearing what you're saying, and it sounds like this is going to require some time to put together a reasonable business plan for the school. And I'm all for that. But I will say, I'll speak to the grant component of that. As you're putting other things out to in 3 years, I would say that it would be a very big stretch to depend on any federal funds through the state. I think you're gonna see a lot of cuts in Mid-Hudson REDC money for acquisition. And I've had enough experience with the last go-round of this administration to say that with some certainty.
Terry Spees again. You mentioned the egress issue at the school being why you don't want to move either police, EMS, or highway department there? That precludes it from any of those uses?
Well,
It
we
is
were
a
never
concern.
gonna move the highway there, it's
Why-
just too
why wouldn't
residential
one-
of an area.
Okay.
The trucks, they're big trucks, they move in and out a lot, or they'll open their garage doors and do a lot of heavy machinery work. It's just not a,
Multiple large fuel tanks.
We'd have to build
Okay,
a massive
yes.
garage on
I
the
see.
property too, yeah.
yeah.
As it relates to EMS and police, I think the only use for that building there would be offices for the chiefs. The police have their garage on 42.
Right, okay.
Chad, I don't see him wanting to move out of that building as far as a point of,
It's a
you know,
good
chi-
central location, it's,
yes. And as far as EMS, we do need to think about relocating their garage because they're boarding in the firehouse, correct?
Yes.
As well as the police station. So it would be nice for them to have their own building. I don't know that the school is the best option for it, but it's just a concern. Those things aren't written off.
Okay.
It's just something we're thinking about.
Any thought of, I don't know, DEC? Do they need office space for rangers or something?
I'll reach out to DEC also, yeah, not sure. You know, it's, when all this, if it does happen, we may hear from a lot more people like DEC and DEP may change their mind that there's we could put an office there, as well as the county. They may think otherwise, if it ever is settled and we're there as a town building, many other things might fall into place. But as we were talking, if we do buy it on the open market, then we have a lot more leeway and opportunities.
we just have to consider that if you buy it on the open market, and you're paying, you know, 200,000 for it, you still have to do all the repairs, you still have to do the overhead, you still have to worry about all those costs.
Right. Right, correct.
The only potential offset there is that if you were able to then have a private renter and then bring in a revenue, that one-time set of costs may turn out to be less over the longer period of time. Not to say that it would, it's just simply that's in effect the calculation, right, of a higher upfront cost versus a potential revenue.
So I think the numbers should run up.
Absolutely.
See what they say, they'll be able to do work on the market and go from there.
Agreed.
Do you all think we should have
Not by the town,
have an
no.
accountant look the numbers over?
We have an inspection report that the district provided, that was an appraisal and, it was more of an appraisal than a full inspection.
Well, so to your question, the next part of, I think what should be part of our conversation is what we want to do as next steps as far as due diligence.
Right, do we want to have an accountant look at numbers and give us some realistic, or do we think we could
We need
handle
to
that?
appraise and give them numbers to work with, the
Yeah.
accountant, yeah. We need to come up with the numbers for the accountant to run them.
I mean, my personal sense is the very next step would be a building inspection.
Yeah.
Right. And I have called Warren to look at the building. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I called him a week and a half ago. But he will give us a number on how much that inspection will cost. He's a commercial inspector.
I also think
What
this
was
is
that?
probably not the, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just clarifying the Warren that I thought it was.
I think it would be very helpful, and this is probably not the very next step by any means, but to eventually have a public meeting with the lawyer present and ask a lot of these questions with him, if not physically present, in a virtual meeting at the very least.
Yeah. I'm for it. Any other questions?
Is there, like I hear you guys are talking about what are next steps, what's, you know, due diligence, how do we want to handle this next? And I'm also hearing that there's sort of this time pressure piece for the immediate conversation about the $1 versus the open market and how far does the town want to continue to investigate this and invest its own funds? Like having, I think having a lawyer is important, but then that also costs money, right? We have to pay for their time. Is there a procedure that's already established on how, on these next steps, or is this sort of like building the thing on the fly?
There's there's procedures that you should follow, but we don't have a set of procedures. We've not done this before.
Right, that was my sense, that's why I was asking the clarifying.
I'm just going to follow up on that. The Patterns for Progress report, again, closed schools, open minds, does have some examples of how one might go about these things. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Are you gonna send us that link? There you go.
I believe I have it.
Do we want to set up another time to speak, or shall we wait until we hear back from Warren?
We have a meeting on
Monday.
Monday. I think at the moment it might be best to wait on Warren, and then we can revisit this conversation on Monday and hopefully have a little bit more
Okay. I'll
of a sense
poke
of his
him
schedule.
tomorrow, find out what his time frame is. All right. Make a motion to, does anyone else want to speak on this subject or any other subject?
You never know.
So I had suggested that perhaps you'd want to gather some sort of community committee to look into help look into some of these issues, and I just want to mention that one more time. As you've seen, the community has really stepped up on a lot of committees and been very helpful to the town.
Or are we at that point, or do we want to decide
I don't believe that's something we'd be able to do in today's meeting
Yeah,
regardless,
no,
but,
no. I mean, I think we need to get
Something to consider.
an inspection first. Hear back from Labella with their assessment or a fee of what they were going to do and what they're going to give us. We're also waiting for them. So let's speak more on it on Monday. And
yeah, I think that's appropriate.
That's 6:30, correct?
Yes,
correct, yes.
I'll just say I just sent everybody the Patterns for Progress report.
there you go.
Thank you.
Teamwork. So do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
And on the motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yes. All in favor?
All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.